what happens when you throw away all of your non-recyclable trash? Well, there is a very, very large trash incinerator in the Lorton area, which, if you read the county's discussion of it, it's terrific. It takes all that trash and turns it into electricity. What could be wrong with that? Other than it produces over 1 million tons of greenhouse gases every year. It is the largest emitter of a whole lot of really nasty chemicals, which Mike Ewall, who is been leading this charge for a decade in trying to stop trash incinerators, block them from being built, or to cut back, or as he's been successful, to get them canceled in jurisdictions around the country. So Mike, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Hi everyone, my name is Mike Ewall. I'm founder and director of Energy Justice Network, and I hope this is, I'll just make it tall enough for me this way. So I have a lot of material I'm going to try to race through. I apologize for that. Is there a clicker thing, or did I just say go to you? Okay, awesome. All right, let me go up here so I can see what I'm looking at. All right, so I'm a resident of Arlington at the moment. I've been living in the DC area okay, that's better, great, for about 10 years, but I've been fighting incinerators since I was in high school in 1990, so it's almost 30 years now. So this is the organization I run. We can go on to the next one. So, sorry, this doesn't all quite fit, but that fire is the incinerator where your trash goes in February 2nd, 2017. It consumed the plant. It had 3 stories of trash burning uncontrolled for 2 weeks. This is right adjacent to the 12th most diverse community of color in the country, the Lorton Valley neighborhood. I was there with my then roommate with gas masks on, particulate filter masks, going door to door to reach out to that community for the 3rd time in the wake of that. And that incinerator was shut down for the whole rest of the year, so your waste didn't pile up on the curb. It still had places to go, but thankfully it wasn't this large polluter. So, and that was a quote just from the company Covanta that runs it, saying that fires at incinerators are more prevalent. This happened about 3 months after another 2-week-long waste pile fire happened at the one in Montgomery County, Maryland. So this is a picture of it when it's not catching fire. I took that from the neighborhood. This is EPA's latest data on the emissions in the county from industry. That one incinerator is the largest polluter in the county by far. 75% of the industrial air pollution in Fairfax County comes from that one smokestack, and that's not when it's having uncontrolled fires. That's when it's operating normally. The second largest air polluter, another 12%, is the sewage sludge incinerator, also in the Northern area, which puts out an astonishing 400 pounds of lead per year, which is shocking. None of them I've seen are anywhere close to that. So there's a serious environmental justice, environmental racism problem with what's going on in Lorton. They also have 3 landfills in that same neighborhood. Go ahead. This is where trash incinerators are in the country. You can see there's a bit of a trend where they're basically all between Virginia and Maine, with the exception of Florida, Minnesota, and some other scattered ones. So we're in the middle of a cluster of a lot of incinerators, and I've been leading active campaigns in Baltimore and Montgomery County and elsewhere throughout the region and throughout the country to get these shut down. Go on to the next one. This is the trend line. A lot of them are shutting down. There are only 74 left in the country. This is down from more than twice that a couple decades ago. They're going out of style. No one's building new ones. They know they can't because people fight them for good reason. All right, so I'm not going to get into all the, I give whole presentations on this. I can't give you the whole thing, but know that there's a lot more that I'm happy to give if you bring me in other places. So incinerators are not trash to steam facilities. We're not just putting ice cubes in the trash can. It's trash to toxic ash and toxic air emissions. That's what's really happening. For every 100 tons of trash we burn, we get 30 tons of highly toxic ash that still goes to a landfill. The landfill right behind it, the I-95 landfill that the county runs, is where the ash goes, and also takes the ash from the trash incinerator in another community color in Alexandria that serves Alexandria and Arlington. It's also not a waste-to-energy facility. We call them waste-of-energy facilities because if you compost and recycle the same materials that are being burned up, you save 3 to 5 times more energy than you can get back by burning it. Okay, I'll just summarize the next several slides by saying that trash incineration is the most expensive and polluting way to manage waste or to make energy. And we have documentation on all of that. This is from the last one was from the industry showing that it's more expensive than landfilling. Go on. This is from the federal government showing that it's the most expensive way to make energy, to build it or to operate and maintain it compared to anything else they looked at. Go ahead. This is just more on how uneconomical they are. Go on. They also compete with recycling and composting, and so they demand a certain amount of waste to be feeding this machine that burns 3,000 tons a day of trash. It's the 4th largest in the country. And if they don't get that, usually municipalities, counties get punished because they have to pay anyway for the waste that you're not feeding them. And they also compete directly with composting, so they want the compostables so they can put more waste through their system because it doesn't burn as well, which is weird and counterintuitive, but we learned that's the case from this company and others recently. Okay, go on. Just more on how bad they are economically. Skip this. They're also the worst on jobs. Trash incineration is actually even worse than landfills, but both are about 10 times worse than recycling for getting jobs. So if anyone brings up the jobs argument, they lose on that front too, because the alternatives create far more. Go on, same thing, go on. Compared to coal, when I say it's the most polluting way to make energy, we compare the latest EPA data, and we're about to update this with newer data soon, from all the coal plants in the country to all the trash incinerators, and found that even with the extra pollution control devices that incinerators have because they're newer than coal plants on average, they are still many times more polluting than burning coal. And we all know coal is filthy. We're not saying we like coal, we're saying trash incineration is that much worse. And this is the same data just shown in a visual format. When the industry was confronted with this, when I was testifying in DC City Council 5 years ago, or 6 now, before the president of the trade association that represents the industry, they couldn't escape this argument. The only thing they could do is go to becoming waste facilities again. Usually they bend over backwards to say, we're power plants, we're energy facilities. And then when you compare them to coal plants, like, oh, no, you can't do that. We're waste facilities. So that's what that quote is from. So this is showing with EPA data how they compare on global warming. They're actually 2.5 times as bad as coal for global warming, and that's EPA data if you don't do all kinds of crazy acrobatic mathematics with it, like the industry does, to make it seem like they're actually trying a solution. Not sure. Go on. Dioxin is the most toxic class of chemicals known to science, and mostly comes out of incinerators. There's actually a documentary that came out a couple years ago called What the Health. I'm in there for a little bit, and it talks about veganism. I heard someone bring that up earlier. Thank you. And I'm talking about how this toxic poison that comes out of incinerators ends up in the meat and dairy that we consume if you're not vegetarian or vegan. Go to the next slide. This is EPA's own data showing where you get exposed to the most toxic chemicals known to science that are coming out of incinerators like this, and 93% of it is from meat and dairy products. So it's not just about breathing, it's about if you eat anywhere and this pollution reaches your food chain, and it does because it travels far, then this affects you. Go ahead. I won't get into this right now. Go ahead, next one. Keep going. Okay. Okay, this here, we did for DC 2 years ago, a life cycle analysis comparing landfilling versus incineration. And we specifically compared DC's use of this incinerator because 20% of the waste burned in this county is from DC. And that's where I was living for most of the past decade. And my mission is still to get DC to stop dumping on Fairfax County. And we're making some progress in that. It's slow. We're working on it. And in the progress of trying to convince them, we compared by 10 different environmental criteria. We hired a published expert in this to do a life cycle analysis and found that by most of the criteria, and all of the big ones, including global warming, nitrogen oxide pollution, a number of them, that it's worse to burn here than to truck it 4 times as far to landfills in southeastern Virginia, which is what happened when they were shut down for most of 2017. So go to the next slide. This is the person that did the study. Next. This is just what we compared. We compared this incinerator from DC's waste coming 17 miles to coming here or all the way down here. Go ahead. And this is just the data we fed into that model. keep going. Actually, go back to that. This is Storck. This is within 20 miles of DC. This incinerator is the #1 source of nitrogen oxides. It used to be second to one of the airports in that radius, but now it's worse than both the airports. #1 in carbon dioxide, #1 in hydrochloric acid, hydrofluoric acid, mercury, sulfur dioxide, and actually that's fourth, and they're top 10 in lead. That is a huge public health problem, not just a global warming one. And so the next 10 slides, we'll just breeze through these, but you'll see when we do that yellow line is the incinerator, the blue and red are the landfills. Blue is twice as far trucking, 4 of the 3 landfills that are 4 times as far. If trucking were the big issue, you would see a much bigger difference between the blue and red lines, but you don't. The amount of emissions from incineration and landfilling dwarf any emissions from all the trucking if you have to truck it further. So just page through these. And on 6 of the 10 criteria, this is a summary of them, incineration is worse. On 3, landfills are worse, but they're very small amounts, like ozone depleters. You don't get that out of incinerators, you get a little bit out of landfills. And one of them is roughly a tie. So on balance, we can say with numbers, with credible stuff specific to our situation, it's worse to be burning our trash. This is just the number of fires Cavance's had at their incinerators in recent years. This is the did for Montgomery County, and their Montgomery County one had 6 just in 2 years. That required off-site emergency response. Go on. A lot of health problems associated with trash incineration. Of course, asthma is triggered from a lot of the pollution from this, especially all the nitrogen oxides. A lot of different cancers are known to be increased. There's no specific study of this area. Generally, they don't do studies of this sort, but if you did, you might find that there are problems related to this. It's also an environmental justice problem. So you'll see the incinerator as well as the sludge incinerator and 3 landfills are all concentrated here, where most of the people of color in the county are also, a lot of them, concentrated. Go ahead. And it's relatively affluent compared to the state and national average household income, but compared to this county, which is even more affluent, it's low income for that context. But as we find, when we look at this from an environmental justice lens and do the statistics nationally as we've done, we find that race is more of a factor than class in where these end up. So when we say it's environmental racism, we actually know what we're talking about. We have the numbers to prove it. Unfortunately, that's the trend. Whether it's intentional or not is not the point. People who suffer health disparities already are already getting disproportionately impacted on top of that. Next one. So the solution to all this, aside from cutting off the worst possible option, which is stop burning, we need to obviously move towards zero waste, because being content with just landfilling isn't a good answer either. So zero waste, I actually helped redefine that internationally. There's a Zero Waste International Alliance, and they just came up with a revised definition of this past month. This is what that definition reads. And no one is unrealistic in thinking we're going to get to literal zero. The idea is to go as close as you can. So it's like zero drug tolerance policies, or zero safety defects, or zero injuries in the workplace. No one sets out and says, we're going to injure 5 workers per year. That would be crazy, right? But with waste, we do that all the time. We say, we're going to hit this percentage of recycling, and the rest, and we just burn it, no problem. But it is a problem. So we need to have policies that get us as close to zero as we can. Go on. And keep going. This is my personal zero waste experiment from 2015. That's how much trash I produced in 4 months. I weighed it. It turned out that I produced about as much trash in 1 year as most people do on average in this country in 1 day. But this is not about changing individual behavior alone. We need to do the institutional changes that make it easy to do this, to have composting readily available at the curbside, and have all the other solutions so that this is simple for people. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, this is the zero waste hierarchy that I developed. An earlier version of it was used by the City of Oakland and then adopted as an international standard by the Zero Waste International Alliance. This is the latest version of it. And everyone likes to jump to recycling, but there are a lot of steps ahead of that, and a lot of things on the back end before you get to the unacceptable category, which is where incineration is, where you basically need to get extra recyclables out of the trash cans that people throw out accidentally, to stabilize residuals with a composting or digestion process before it goes to a landfill, because there's a landfill at the end of the pipe no matter what you do, but it's better not to send toxic ash to that landfill. And it's better not to send compostables to that landfill where it's going to form landfill gas and be a climate problem. So we need to address both of these problems at the same time. This is just the same idea in more detail. All right, just keep going to my title slide. Okay, just leave it there so people can write down my info. Let me pass around a sign-up sheet so that folks who want to get involved with this can, and I'll quickly tell you what we're working on to do to change this. So the county has a contract that expires on February 1st, 2021. And there are 2 5-year renewal options on that contract. And to exercise that first one, and this is the contract that steers all your waste in the county to this incinerator, to exercise that first renewal period, they have to say, we want to extend this by February 1st of this year. So we have about 3 weeks. I just realized this about a week ago. After rereading the contract, it's like, oh gosh, 2 years in advance, that's not usual. So I'm like, that's a few weeks away. So we need to do what we can to push the county to ask for an extension, if not just outright say, we're not interested in renewing this contract. I don't think we're necessarily going to win that first battle, but we need to wage it. We need to educate the county supervisors to know that this is important to us and that this is something that is not acceptable to go on in the future. Now, if we buy ourselves time, maybe we can actually win the cancellation of that contract by the time it expires in 2021. Even if we don't, there are many other strategies and battlefronts that we can wage on this. I've been working on the DC end to stop the flow of DC waste here. We can work with folks in Prince William County where waste also comes here to make sure that their waste isn't directed here. And we can also work in Maryland where the legislature came very close last year. They actually passed a bill in one of the chambers of their legislature to remove renewable energy credits, which are on the same level as wind power in Maryland. And that Maryland law is giving millions of dollars a year to this facility to keep burning in Virginia. A facility that's so dirty that the company's headquarters is based in New Jersey. Their home state of New Jersey has said that this facility can't sell renewable energy credits to New Jersey because it's too dirty for New Jersey. Okay? Fathom that for a second. But Maryland, of course, says it's equal to wind power and we're going to feed it millions of dollars a year. So I think we can win this in this county. I think we can help win this in DC and Maryland, which are propping it up as well. We welcome your support on any of these battlefronts, and just sign up when you get around to the sign-up sheet and let me know if you have questions. Yes. Oh yeah, my email is cut off. Okay, so I have cards I can give out. Stick around. People can talk to me, but if you want to write it down, my email address is Mike, M-I-K-E, at energyjustice.net. So easy enough to remember, Mike at energyjustice.net. And I think I'm out of time, so appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Not only is burning trash nasty, but there was a study that was just done in 2016 by the Virginia Healthcare and Hospitals Association that found a very large concentration or spike of pediatric asthma emergency department visits in Woodbridge and Dale City, which are basically downwind and downstream from the big Covanta plant. So it's likely affecting the health of kids here right now.